All right. So, welcome to Tools for Coping with Anxiety and Stress. My name is Grace Loney. I just started the company Gracefully Holistic um, just a couple months ago, actually, January. It's a nutrition and wellness company, and I'll get more into kind of my story in a little bit. And you notice that little bit of alphabet soup that I included after my name. Some people love to just, brag about all their credentials, but really for me, all that I wanted it to signify for you guys is that I am a student of life and I never want to stop learning. So I love, continuing my education and expanding my consciousness. And I know that each and every one of you here that is on this call tonight also shares in that passion for learning, and that's why you're here. So thank you all for being here, for investing some time in your health and wellness. And I hope that you get some really useful tools out of this that can help you. And it's kind of funny. The reason why I actually started Gracefully Holistic is because of anxiety and stress. So that's what brought me to this stage in my life. 2 years ago, I broke out in actually a full body rash. So I had hives basically from head to toe, and it was extremely painful. And I could not get, it just I could not like alleviate my symptoms. I tried every single cream, psoriasis, eczema, Epsom salt baths, like you name it. I tried literally everything and I couldn't sleep at night. It was just extremely painful. I was in and out of the dermatologist's office and they basically told me, we don't know what it is, but we're pretty sure it's just stress. And I was just like, what? At that moment, it just made me realize that the pace of life that I was living and my lack of self-care was finally showing up and presenting itself in my body in an excruciating way. So that was a huge learning for me. And it actually helped me discover that I also have an autoimmune disorder called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And it's basically my immune system is attacking my thyroid. And your thyroid is just an organ that basically controls all of the hormones in your body. So if you think of stress and cortisol being that stress hormone, it just wreaks havoc with every single process in your body. So that kind of started my journey down the health and wellness path and really trying to define that for myself, and led me to finally pull the plug on my career that was not providing me with joy and happiness and balance in my life. And I started Gracefully Holistic. So thank you guys for your support for this first ever virtual class. All right, so what we're going to cover tonight, we're going to first just define what is anxiety and stress. And then we're going to talk more about this thing called cortisol and how it shows up in the body and how chronic levels of cortisol can really take a toll on your symptoms. Then we're going to talk about different tools in your life that you can use to kind of help mitigate some of this anxiety and stress. And there's different ways that you can do that. There's through the diet, exercise modifications. I'll teach you some breathing techniques that have really helped me. And, right after my whole skin rash episode is when I actually found the American Meditation Institute, which is a mile down the road from my house. Which is kind of miraculous because if you guys know, some of you know where I live and you know that I live in the middle of nowhere. So to have this really renowned meditation institute right nearby, it was just kind of like a universal sign that it was there for me. And I discovered meditation and how that's just fundamentally changed how my brain thinks and how I approach life. So I'm happy to be sharing that with you all towards the end. And then we'll just end with a live Q&A. So again, if you didn't hear in the beginning, please just go ahead and save your questions for the end, and then we'll address as many as time allows. Cool. So let's address the elephant in the room. COVID-19. I'm pretty sure that's why a lot of you are here. And there is no doubt that this pandemic is not only affecting our nation and the world in the form of disease and death and just disruption to our life, but how toxic and um, and what am I trying to say? Like infectious the fear and the anxiety that is around it. I was actually listening to this woman talk about it on Instagram, and she said that, you know, I was fine. I was actually fine until someone fear vomited all over me. And then I couldn't just sustain that fear in my body. So then I had to fear vomit on somebody else. And like the chain just kind of reacts over and over and over. So I thought that was really interesting. And I know that I've been fear vomited on, and I've fear vomited on other people throughout the past couple weeks. So I really want you to take that with you. And really, what I think is so interesting is that you really just need to come to terms with the fact that coronavirus isn't causing you stress and anxiety right now. You actually already had an issue dealing with stress and anxiety long before this pandemic occurred. But it's really just the gravity and of this situation that has finally made you realize, like, holy cow, I need to make some changes in my life to best support me, whether Corona is there or not. So I know that, you know, it's not to be taken lightly how people's lives have been disrupted. They're redoing a lot of their finances, their careers, loved ones getting sick. But again, just see the positive in this and let it be a blessing, to show you that you do need to address some of these self-care routines in your life, Corona or not. You know, maybe you were just able to get by before ignoring it, but you know, now that this fear is so widespread, it's definitely time to pay attention and to bring some of these practices in your day-to-day life. All right, so what is stress? So stress, you know, it's not really good or bad, but it can be good or bad, right? So there's positive stress and there's negative stress. Positive stress, like for me right now, you know, my heart rate's a little bit elevated. I'm giving this presentation. You know, I'm feeling, you know, my heart rate's increased. Like I'm feeling a stress response, but it's good stress, right? It's helping me grow, become a better presenter, share this knowledge with you all. So that's good stress. When it comes to bad stress, that's when you are always kind of in this heightened state. You've got cortisol and adrenaline through your body pretty much all the time. So that's when it really just turns into the bad stress. And stress is just like a normal pathway that we need in our body, you know. So back when we were cavemen and women, and we were walking through the woods and a bear appeared, and the bear, you know, started chasing after us, we needed to run from that bear and get the hell away so that we could survive. So it really triggers that, what's called the sympathetic nervous system. And that is your fight or flight system. And that just really helps you mobilize to take action and avoid that danger. But again, so that stress response is really healthy, right? If there's a real emergency in our life, like you have to run away from a bear. But if you're constantly getting stress signals from everyday issues like work-related anxiety, stress at home, then you are going to burn out over time. And then anxiety. So I have a definition here provided by the American Psychological Association, but I kind of like my definition better. And this is just based off of my own experience with anxiety. But it's really just circling thoughts. And that's why I have this poor woman lying on the floor with this circling thought bubble, like thinking about something either from the past, like rehashing the past over and over and over and over. What could I have done better? What could I have done different? What happened here? Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? Those circling thoughts. Or what if scenarios about the future, right? Well, what should I do if this happens? And what should I do if that happens? And what's going to happen next? And what's going to happen tomorrow? And what's going to happen next week? And how am I going to do this, right? So you're either stuck in the past or you're stuck in the future. Maybe it's a combination of the both. But one thing's for sure is you're certainly not in the present moment. And that for me has kind of been the root of my anxiety. So let's talk about stress and the different phases of stress. And so this is going to kind of lead into physiologically what's happening in the body. So, you know, you start in homeostasis, everything's cool. You know, you're happy, you're calm, going about your day-to-day business. And then boom, something happens in your life and you go into panic mode, right? You're in the alarm phase. So that's your sympathetic nervous system is activated. And it triggers your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are actually little glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they will start to secrete glucocorticoid hormones called cortisol and epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, right? So cortisol and adrenaline, they flood the body and they get you ready for fight or flight. They flood your body with glucose, so it supplies an immediate energy source for all of your larger muscles, so you can run away from that bear. And then it narrows the arteries, and the adrenaline will actually increase your heart rate, so it will actually force blood to pump harder and faster through your body, again, so you can run from that bear really well. And you'll notice, like, if you're have a harsh deadline at work and it's getting close to that deadline, you kind of notice some of these physiological changes. Like, you can feel your heart beating out of your chest, you might be sweating, pupils dilating, all of those things. So real physiological changes happen in the body because of this whole hormone cascade. So then after that, if once the stressor goes away, you can go back to that good health homeostasis, calm, cool, collected, everything's cool, or you go into this adaptive or resistant stage. So this is just after that initial stress response. If your body will attempt to return to homeostasis, but if you have more stress reactions, or if that stress response was just super, super strong, your body will remain on high alert. And as a result of constant stress, your body builds up a resistance and a tolerance to coexist with the continuous stressors. So it's this extended release of stress hormones that has an adverse effect on your body. It lowers your immune system and it makes you more susceptible to illness. And there's a host of all other kind of reactions that we're going to go over in the coming slides. Then if you make it past that, then you're entering into the real danger zone, the exhaustion stage, complete burnout, like you've fallen on the floor, you can't even get up. If you continue to function in that wired state, and you never fully return to a resting state. So all of your emergency resources are completely depleted, and quite frankly, your body just starts to shut down. So it really just represents your inability to cope with the continuous high demands and trying to meet these demands and these stressors in your life. And, if you think about it, back to the caveman days, like, it's not natural to constantly feel like you're being chased by a bear, right? You just can't live like that. But our brain doesn't know the difference between being chased by a bear and a perceived stressor in our life. So sometimes it's all about just understanding what our perceived stress is and trying to work with that and realize that maybe it's not really a stress. Maybe it's just something made up in my mind that I made up about the future or that I'm worried about in the past. All right, so how do we break this destructive cycle of stress? I'm gonna go a little bit of science nerd here on you. I know I've got some engineers in the room, so I know this will be appreciated. If you're not really a science nerd, just hang tight. We'll explain everything. So you have this thing called an autonomic nervous system, or your ANS. And this is really just governed by subconscious thinking. That's your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your fingernails growing, healing a cut or a wound, your digestion. It's like all of those things that you don't have to think about, like you don't have to actively think about, but your brain is already doing it in the background subconsciously. And there's two main pathways in your autonomic nervous system. There's your sympathetic nervous system, and that's your fight or flight, running from the bear. And then there is your parasympathetic nervous system, which is supposed to be your default, so where you should be living most of the time. And that's your rest and digest, repair, and reproductive mode. So we're going to come back to that. So PNS, rest and digest, repair, reproductive. SNS is fight or flight. So the parasympathetic, or just as the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, just as it turns on fight or flight, the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, can turn it off. So the parasympathetic nervous system helps the body conserve energy and rest. And your ability to go from fight or flight back into rest and digest mode is critical for your health and well-being. But unfortunately, the return to relaxation doesn't really occur promptly for most people, especially in our fast-paced society today and all of the demands that we place on ourselves. We're running around in that panic mode from our everyday worries, and that bless you, and that chronic stress is, and that chronic stress is really just disrupting the natural balance that is required for your optimal health. It also speeds up the aging process. And this is like a whole nother topic that we could get into, but there's a lot of research on telomeres and the aging process and stress. And it also increases the body's susceptibility to illness, which we're gonna get into in just a little bit. So you see this kind of seesaw image before you. So really it's all about upregulating our parasympathetic nervous system and downregulating our sympathetic nervous system. So how do we downregulate our fight or flight? Well, caffeine makes adrenaline. And in your sympathetic, I see you, Kim, and your sympathetic nervous system is, like I said before, pumping adrenaline and cortisol in your body. So limiting the caffeine might help get some of that excess adrenaline out of your system. And like I said before, really exploring that perception of pressure. Like, what are you seeing as threats in your life that may or may not actually be a viable threat or something that you need to give your attention to? And then upregulating your PNS. We're going to be talking a lot about that a little bit later. We're going to be talking about diaphragmatic breathing, long, slow exhalations, restorative exercises, and different foods that can help support you. All right, we're going to be on this slide for a little while, but these are basically all of the things that could happen in your body due to stress. And the list is pretty exhaustive, but we're going to go through one by one because I really want you to understand like how detrimental stress can be to your health and well-being. And we're going to start with the upper right-hand corner, the reduced ability to fight and recover from illness. So this is directly related to COVID-19 right now, right? Not wanting to get that virus and spread it around. But really, we need to activate our parasympathetic nervous system for repair. So when you're, if cortisol really functions to actually reduce inflammation in the body, which is good, but then over time, these efforts to reduce inflammation will suppress your immune system. So chronic inflammation caused by these lifestyle factors, such as stress, is going to help keep cortisol levels soaring, and that's going to wreak havoc on your immune system. So an unchecked immune system that's unabated by inflammation can just lead to a myriad of problems after that. Inflammation is just the core of all disease. You're more susceptible to colds, other illnesses, a risk of cancer, a tendency to develop food allergies, gastrointestinal issues, and the increased risk of autoimmune disease. Hello, I'm subject A for that. So yeah, it's critically important to be activating our PNS, our rest and digest repair mode, to have our immune systems working optimally. Next is stomach cramps, reflux, and nausea. So actually cortisol will divert blood away from our digestion and into our larger, more critical muscles, such as our heart, our legs, our arms, because we got to run away from the bear, right? So when we divert blood away from our digestive system, we're not digesting our food properly. So that can lead to IBS symptoms, acid reflux. So just a host of digestional issues. So if you suffer from some of those symptoms, it could be worth examining how much stress you're actually under and what's physiologically happening in the body. Then we've got loss of libido. Libido is just your sex drive, lower sperm production in men, and an absent or irregular menstrual cycle in women. And really, like when you're in fight or flight, your primary goal is to get away from the bear. So biologically speaking, this would be very unsafe for you to create a baby. It's not high on your priority list. Reproduction happens in parasympathetic nervous system state. I'm going to jump up to mood issues. So this one's really interesting. There's been a lot of research on brain density and chronic stress. So chronic stress can lead to long-term changes in the brain that actually affect cognitive function, changes in memory, learning, and mental health. So Yale University actually did a really interesting study that found that stress actually reduces the gray matter volume in key areas of the prefrontal cortex and the limbic regions. And these areas are responsible for emotional stability, decision making, like if you're feeling super frazzled all the time, and just focusing. So super, super critical here for brain health. And also sleep. Fight or flight is designed to keep you awake. So you really can't sleep restoratively if you're constantly in this fight or flight state. And not having enough sleep, my friends, we could do a whole nother session on sleep and just the cascading swirl of negative events and consequences that happen in the body due to a lack of sleep. Sleep is just that ultimate rest and digest mode. And so next we're going to move on to risk of heart attack. So as we've seen, cortisol restricts, like I said before, restricts the blood vessels and increases the blood pressure to enhance the delivery of oxygenated blood to our arms and legs so we can run away from the bear. So it's very advantageous in a fight or flight situation, but not perpetually, because over time that arterial constriction and that high blood pressure can lead to vessel damage, plaque buildup, and my friends, that is the perfect scenario for heart attack. And then now down to fat storage and disrupted hunger cues. So the biological mechanism behind the tendency is to just store fat due to the rise in cortisol. So cortisol actually ramps up your insulin levels and causes your blood sugar to drop. So when your blood sugar drops, you actually crave more sugar and fat than you normally would. So it kind of messes with your hunger cues a lot. Also, when you're in fight or flight, glucose is your primary fuel for energy, and glucose is just like quick sugar, like gotta go, gotta run. And then when you're in parasympathetic state, you're actually more able to use fat as an energy source. You can actually burn fat. And it's actually interesting too. People who are stressed tend to carry a lot of extra fat cells in their midsection, and they, this goes back to heart attack, diabetes, all of these risks, but increased fat around our midsection actually puts you at an increased risk for all those other diseases. So stress is just really like, if you keep going back to that main cause, it keeps coming back to stress, which is really scary. And so all of these processes, they really, what they do is they just cause a lot of inflammation in the body that can lead to joint pain. And we're going to talk a little bit more about inflammation in the coming slides and how controlling inflammation is really key here. And one more thing that's not on this slide, but I just wanted to add for fun because this is one of my symptoms: hair, skin, and nails. Hair, skin, and nails are not a priority to save your life when a bear's chasing you. Right? So if your nails are super cracked or really rigid, or if your hair breaks a lot, it can take away that blood flow. Again, bring that blood flow from your skin, your hair, your nails to those vital organs. That's probably why I broke out in a full body rash. My skin was not getting the nutrients that it needed. So it's pretty crazy how some of these symptoms show up. Cystic acne, all kinds of fun stuff, right? All right, so I've spent a while convincing you that stress is bad, right? So now what can we do to help kind of live with this stress, right? We can't make stress go away. It's going to be there, right? But what can you do to best support you? And the answer here is simply self-care. And self-care, I hesitated with creating this slide because it's kind of a buzzword right now, like, oh, go take a bubble bath and all that stuff. And, I don't know, like do your nails, like self-care, right? Like hashtag all that stuff. But really, the first step to self-care is the food that you feed your body. The food that you feed your body is the most basic form of self-care that there is out there. So we're going to start with that. So stress and diet. So when faced with stressful situations, people have to find ways to cope. with the level of perceived stress. And coping mechanisms can be very different for everybody. They're very wide ranging. But one thing that many people turn to, myself included, is food when it comes to stress. Food offers a momentary escape for an immediate pleasure experience in the midst of really just an unpleasant state, right? So you're trying to find balance in the body and you're using food to balance that internal state. So it makes it a really attractive option and a quick fix, really, to just alleviate stress. And stress typically affects the diet in two ways. It affects our behaviors around food. It drives how much and what we eat. And then it also creates the perfect scenario for fat storage and promotes an obesogenic state, like I explained with the cortisol earlier. And I invite you to just think right now, like, the last time you were stressed and you were craving food, like, have you ever noticed what you crave? Like, it's not Brussels sprouts and broccoli, right? It's not carrots. Stress makes you have a tendency to seek out foods that are comforting, right? So those are snacks like rich pasta dishes, cakes, cookies, ice cream. It's not celery and asparagus, right? But what these craved foods have in common is that they are considered hyper palatable. They're high calorie, high fat, high sugar items that are really hard to turn down. And it's especially difficult to turn them down when you're stressed. And these high sugar foods really, not only do they provide that quick energy source that the body is asking for, right, when we're in that state of stress, but, you know, and it prepares the body for fight or flight, but those palatable foods also release dopamine. And dopamine is the feel-good hormone. So that is particularly attractive when you're stressed, right? To feel good again. So over time, it may lead you to seek out that feeling more and more. And then eventually, you know, you might not get the same reward, and then you need to consume more highly palatable foods and so on. So it can really start to create this addictive like or compulsive eating behavior, and it can become really difficult to control. Those high sugar foods too, sugar, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but sugar causes a lot of inflammation in the body, and inflammation triggers more cortisol to be released. And so the cycle continues, right? So these highly palatable foods may not be the best choice for us when trying to kind of regulate stress in our body. So what can we do? So what I would suggest is to focus on eating a more anti-inflammatory diet, because it's all about controlling inflammation levels in the body. And systemic inflammation, as noted previously, it's caused by those elevated cortisol levels. So if we can naturally decrease inflammation in the body and minimize stress, it's going to decrease those cortisol levels, and then the resulting decreased chronic disease risk, and then improved wellness, right? So we can always start here with food. So some anti-inflammatory foods, fruits and vegetables. We're going to get into a little bit more on what specific fruits and vegetables you could focus on. Omega-3 fatty acids, so fats. I like literally cringe when I hear people say like, oh, that's so fatty, like an avocado. Like, there are good fats and bad fats, and we're going to go over those so that we're clear. But having those good fats in our diet is extremely nourishing and anti-inflammatory for us. Also, legumes. So those are your beans, lentils, chickpeas, all that good stuff. And then we've got whole grains. So whole grains, those, you know, not so much your whole wheat bread, because if you look at some of the first ingredients in typical whole wheat bread in the grocery store, it's mostly refined flour. When you think of whole grains, think of like rice, brown rice, quinoa, amaranth, something that you can find in nature, right? Like, you're not going to find a loaf of bread in nature, but you will find quinoa in nature. So that's kind of an easy way to decipher whole grains from a processed grain. And then I had to add this fun one in because I know, you know, eating healthy is not as fun as eating like ice cream and cheesecake, but dark chocolate, as long as it's greater than 70%, then dark chocolate, it has very high antioxidant level and can help reduce inflammation. So woohoo. All right, so let's get into some vegetables that are super, super high in antioxidants. Dark leafy greens. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Dark leafy greens. You should be filling your plate with these bad boys. Kale, arugula, spinach, rainbow chard, Swiss chard, collard greens. They're not only super high in antioxidants, but super, super high in vital vitamins and phytonutrients that we need to carry out a lot of the essential processes in our body. So these are just the powerhouses. And when it comes to volumetrics, like per gram of these bad boys is the most nutrient density of any food or product that you can eat. So really prioritizing those dark leafy greens. And that also includes, it's not really on here, but like broccoli, bok choy, Brussels sprouts, all that good stuff. Cabbage, right? So anything green, just get more greens in your diet. And then aside from that, really just eating the rainbow. So when it comes to the fruits and vegetables, in addition to this, this is just kind of an easy way to remember to eat the rainbow. So there is a biological reason behind the rainbow, because actually each color represents a different phytonutrient that exists in that plant food. So a phytonutrient, phyto just means plant, and then nutrient. So just a specific plant nutrient. You know, like purple, I don't even know how to pronounce some of these. Anthocyanins, yellow is bioflavonoids, green is chlorophyll, orange carotenoids, red lycopene. So there's all of these different vital phytonutrients that we get from the different colors of the rainbow. So making sure you're getting like those sweet potatoes, right? That orange, the purple cabbage, the blueberries, lemons, bananas, peppers. So getting kind of a wide variety of things that you'll have your bases covered nutrient-wise. All right, we're coming back to those omega-3 fatty acids. So omega-3s, these are a little bit harder to find, but they are rich in a bunch of different sources that I'm going to provide for you. Wild-caught salmon. Wild-caught salmon, be careful with the farm-raised salmon because it's not going to have the same levels of nutrients and omega-3s as the wild-caught salmon. Flax seeds, walnuts, extra virgin olive oil. A lot of these things are going to provide you with those anti-inflammatory omega-3 fatty acids. And we're going to come back to the other types of fats that we need to try and decrease in our life and just replace with some more of these better fats for us. All right, next comes probiotic rich foods. Probiotic rich foods. This one's really interesting to me. There has been a lot more research recently around the area of the microbiome and how the microbiome is directly related to our health. And not only that, they've done a lot of research on our microbiome as it relates to stress. And I don't know if some of you might not know this, but actually there is so much bacteria that lives in and on us that we are actually 10 times DNA of bacteria than we are our own DNA, which is pretty crazy. So if you have a disruption to the microbiome, which are like the gut bugs that live inside your gut and on your skin and all that stuff, then it can really just change the processes in your body and change the state of your health. So making sure that you have the good bugs, that's eating those probiotic rich foods, which are pressed salads such as sauerkraut, kimchi, miso soup is really great, like real miso. So be careful with some of the packaged misos. It might just kind of be dead or not real. So real miso soup, half sour pickles, kefir, yogurt without a lot of sugar additives in it. So anything pickled. So really trying to bring in some more of these probiotic rich foods into the diet can help kind of seed more of these good bugs in our microbiome. Especially if we're under a lot of stress. Stress can kind of kill off the good bugs. So now we're helping to kind of reseed back to a normal state. And then I had to bring chocolate in here once again. And I just wanted to emphasize, again, greater than 70%. So I'm sorry if you're a milk chocolate person, terribly, terribly sorry. But you got to go with the dark chocolate. And my favorite, I'll just do a little plug here, is Hu, Hu. They are gluten-free, dairy-free. They don't put any soy or, emulsifiers in there. Just a really great, oh, it's so good. Just a great tasting chocolate. And you can get them on Amazon, Thrive Market, Whole Foods, all that good stuff. It's pretty expensive, but you really only need like 1 to 2 squares and you're like in Happy Town. So try those out if you haven't heard of that. All right, foods to avoid. Oh my God, it's all our favorites. I'm so sorry again to break the news. But again, let's start with those bad fats. So that's really the omega-6 fatty acids. And it's not so much that omega-6 fatty acids are bad, but we just have a higher proportion of omega-6 fatty acids in our diet than we do omega-3s. And it's that disproportionate level of omega-6 that create inflammatory markers in our system. So omega-6 fatty acids show up in meat, dairy products, margarine, vegetable oils like corn, safflower, soybean oil, peanut oil. So just be careful and be kind of mindful of the oils that you're using. Opt for things like olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil are much, much better options to help decrease inflammation in your system. And if you notice, if you're going, if you're in the grocery store and you're going down the aisles that are in the center, anything in a box or in a can or in a package, like it's going to have that like soybean oil because it helps that product be very shelf stable. So it can stay on the shelf for months and months and months and months and not degrade or go bad. But those oils are also very rancid. And again, they're just very inflammatory. So you just have to be really careful with not having the majority of your diet come from those packaged foods or those foods, living in the center aisles of the grocery store. Additionally, studies have shown that a high intake of high glycemic index foods like sugar and refined grains, such as those found in white bread and many processed foods, also rev up inflammation. So just trying to avoid sugary drinks, refined carbohydrates, desserts, processed snack foods. I know this is the fun stuff, guys, but it's all about balance, right? And getting the majority of our diet from those fresh fruits and veggies and whole grains and beans. And then when you want to enjoy and relax, let yourself enjoy and relax. Don't feel guilty, but again, don't be eating that stuff a majority of the time. It's all about the balance. And again, I have to come back to it. I'm sorry, caffeine, it increases the adrenaline in your body. So I invite you to, if you're drinking upwards of 2, 3, 4 cups a day and you're dealing with a lot of these disruptive symptoms of stress and anxiety, try cutting back just a couple of cups a day and see how that makes you feel. See if it's helping you sleep a little bit better. And if you're really sensitive to caffeine like I am, maybe you try and cut it out for just a couple days. Say, I'm going to cut it out for 3 days and see how I do and see how I feel. It's probably going to suck the first couple days. I'm not going to lie, it's going to suck. But once you get past those couple days and the headaches go away, maybe you're going to feel way better. So who knows? So I invite you to try that. All right. The second step to self-care is giving your adrenals a break. So again, your adrenals are this little gland that sits on top of your kidneys, and it's secreting the cortisol hormone. And it's secreting other hormones too, like sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all that good stuff. So when it's constantly releasing cortisol, they will get exhausted, right? And you don't want to get into that adrenal fatigue stage because it can take months and months and months to recover from that, which I'm pretty sure is what I'm going through right now. So what can we do to help support our adrenals and give them a little bit of a break? The first thing is sleep. Sleep, so vitally important. Again, we could do a whole nother lecture on this. It is the ultimate rest and digest mode. So trying to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. If that's hard for you at certain times, maybe finding time to take a little bit of a nap during the day. And the amount of sleep is going to be a little bit different for everybody. So someone might be okay on 7 hours. Some of you might need 10. Everyone's a little bit different, but just really paying attention to your bedtime routine and your morning routine and keeping your bedroom a nice sacred space where you can be in that ultimate rest and digest mode is really going to help manage your stress. And now we're going to come into exercise. So this one's hard for me. This one's hard for me as a fitness instructor, and especially someone with a big ego. I'm not going to lie. Like when I step into the gym, I'm like, oh, I could bench press that. And, let my ego kind of get a little bit carried away. I love the HIIT classes. I love a high intensity spin class, but I need to be really careful with that, because if I have a chronic state of stress, exercise is just another way of putting stress on the body. So you have to realize that, and knowing when you're in the position to push it in the gym and knowing when you need to pull back. So, if you think you're dealing with adrenal fatigue, or if you're just dealing with a lot of stress right now, I would really try and limit your exercise to less than 30 minutes. Set a timer. Don't go over the 30-minute mark. Do what you need to do and get out. The longer periods of exercise are going to put continuous stress on those adrenals. Or just don't, or just take a rest day, take a nap, right? Sometimes just not doing exercise is going to be so much more beneficial for your body than doing exercise. And then, or if you're just someone that really likes to move and have a daily practice, some restorative, easy, gentle yoga, some easier Pilates, Tai Chi, Qigong. There's so many different ways to just move the body. Dancing, having a dance party, just ways that you can kind of de-stress and move a little bit that are much more gentle on the body. And this one's an obvious one too, but walking, right? It's getting nicer out. It's better to go for a nice walk outside. You're breathing the fresh air. So lots of different options there. So just tuning into you and what your body needs for the exercise is critical. Breathing. I feel like this is a good time. I feel like I need a deep breath too. So everyone inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Good. And I invite you to actually put one hand over your heart and one hand over your belly, just gently. And I invite you to just close the eyes and the mouth. If you can't breathe through your nose right now, it's okay to breathe through your mouth, but if you can breathe through your nose, that would be the preferred method. And just notice, just becoming aware of the breath. And which hand is moving? Is your top hand moving, or is your bottom hand moving? If your top hand is moving in and out more than your bottom hand, you're chest breathing. You have more shallow breath, and that's a sign of an SNS response, that shallow breathing running from the bear. And how we can switch over very easily to our parasympathetic rest and digest state is deep diaphragmatic breathing. So making sure that bottom hand is moving out and in with every inhale and exhale. So on the inhale, the hand should move away and the belly is going to expand. That diaphragm is actually moving down and allowing the space in your chest cavity to expand so that the lungs can inflate. And then on the exhale, the diaphragm pushes in, belly contracts, it actually pushes up and squeezes out all of the air out of the lungs. And if you've ever seen a newborn baby, you'll notice that their belly rises and falls. So we're actually born knowing how to diaphragmatically breathe. It's our normal way of breathing, but as we go through life, we tend to get into this sympathetic nervous system state and we learn the shallow breathing. So if you're feeling those symptoms coming on, just putting one hand over your heart and one hand over your belly and coming back to that diaphragmatic breathing can be a game changer for you. And it's actually, there's some science behind it. So I'll give another little plug to my science friends out there. There is a thing called the vagus nerve that connects up into your brain, into your amygdala. And your amygdala is a part of your brain that is actually the fear center. So that's where fight or flight comes from. And its nickname is the reptilian brain. And the vagus nerve comes down, it actually comes through the body and it goes right through the diaphragm. So if you're chest breathing, that vagus nerve is not getting any stimulation. And that actually tells the amygdala, like, oh God, something's wrong. We got to run from the bear, right? But if we're diaphragmatically breathing, then we're actually stimulating that vagus nerve that diaphragm is massaging the vagus nerve by moving up and down, and it tells the brain that everything's okay. And then we go back into that parasympathetic state. So it's actually, there is a biological kind of pathway around why diaphragmatic breathing is more beneficial to get you into that PNS state. The other way to get into a PNS state is to elongate your exhales longer than your inhales. So I'm going to teach you the 4-7-8 breath. So you are going to inhale on the count of 4. You're going to hold for the count of 7, and then you're going to exhale through the mouth on the count of 8. So inhale through the nose, count of 4, hold 7, exhale 8. And we're going to do this for 4 rounds. Ready? Inhale 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last one. Inhale 2, 3, 4, hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Get it all out. Good. Awesome. And the last thing to initiate your parasympathetic nervous system is nostril breathing. So just be gentle with yourself if you have a cold, but generally mouth breathing will initiate your fight or flight response. So if you're breathing in and out through the nose, and there's a lot of different yogic type of breathing exercises, alternate nostril breathing, that we could get into so many breathing exercises in a whole nother workshop as well. All right, last but not least, meditation. This one is near and dear to my heart. As I had shared, this is really what helped me recover from that rash, from the stress, and it has just fundamentally changed how my brain operates. And it actually comes, I like this, I love this root word. The root word comes from the Latin word medere, which means to heal. And medicine and meditation actually come from the same root word, which is pretty profound. And mindfulness and meditation actually promotes gene expression for anti-inflammatory markers. And over 8 weeks, they've done studies that show that people show a change in brain function and a boosted immune system after meditating for 8 weeks, which is crazy. It's just bringing that mindfulness into your life. It really just helps train your brain. It actually increases the density of the prefrontal cortex. So remember when I talked about how stress will actually decrease that gray matter? Meditation will actually increase the density of the prefrontal cortex. That's your decision making, emotional regulation, and attention span. So amazing stuff. And not only that, remember the amygdala, that fear center, the reptilian brain? Meditation has been shown to decrease the density in the amygdala too. So just profound biological results from meditation. It's really just like going to the gym for our minds. It helps us be more kind, more present, and more compassionate. So we're going to end with a quick little guided meditation. This is my gift to all of you. So we're just going to find a nice comfortable seat, and I invite you to just roll the shoulders up and back 3 times and land in a nice stable posture. If your feet can be flat on the floor, that's beneficial. And just elongate the spine a little so the head, neck, and trunk are straight. And it takes any unnecessary pressure off the low back. And then you're going to gently take the palms and place them flat down on tops of your thighs. And I invite you to try the finger lock, which is just taking your index finger and your thumb and gently putting them together and then resting them back on the tops of the thighs. And gently close the eyes and mouth. Your teeth should be barely touching, and your forehead as smooth as a piece of silk. As you enter the witnessing state, mindfully observe the body and the space the body occupies, from the crown of the head all the way down to the toes. Now become aware of the breath flowing evenly through the body, following the inhale, starting at the base of the spine, through the body, and out through the crown of the head. Follow the exhalation back down through the body and out through the base of the spine. Inhale, root to crown. Exhale, crown to root. Allow the breath to be full and even, but not beyond your own comfortable capacity. No jerks, no pauses, no sounds. Just inhalation, gently yielding to exhalation, and exhalation, gently yielding to inhalation. Root to crown, crown to root. If the mind starts to wander, it's never a problem. Just surrender the external thoughts and gently bring your attention back to the breath. Inhalation to exhalation, exhalation to inhalation. Give your full attention to the breath. Attention is self-love. As you make the transition to external awareness, gently disengage the finger lock and join the two palms together in front of the cave of the heart. And offer a sign of peace to you, your internal state, peace to those relationships in your life, and peace to the universe and all that encompasses it. Namaste. So that was just a quick couple-minute exercise. And I invite you to create a daily practice in your life. It doesn't really matter what time, but all that matters is you just do a little bit every day. So even if you start with 1 minute every day, those little incremental gains, you'll start to notice that clarity and calming down and the focus and the attention span. Everything will just become lighter. You'll be more patient and compassionate for those around you. So to wrap up, chronic stress wreaks havoc on the body. Diet is the most basic form of self-care, and it's all about inflammation and reducing that inflammation in the body. Making sure we're getting that adequate rest and giving our adrenals a break, slowing down, being present, not being in the past, not being in the future, being in the here and now, breathing, meditating, and having a sense of gratitude for it all. Wherever you are in this journey, just being grateful for that. Hey guys, I hope you really enjoyed today's presentation all about my holistic tips to managing anxiety and stress. And I just want to kind of add to this and just say that, implementing a lot of these recommended lifestyle changes is way easier said than done, right? And for myself included, I tend to lean on my support system in my life to help make some of these big transition and changes. And so hopefully you have supportive relationships in your life too, that can help inspire you and help move you forward along in this journey. However, working with a health coach can be extremely helpful, especially when you're trying to make some of these transitions, and help it just come a little bit easier and give you some of that added support. So really this stuff is
right within my wheelhouse. It's something I am extremely passionate about. It's a part of, my own story and my own journey, and I'd love to pass on some of that knowledge to you and give you the support that you need to really succeed in your own definition of success. All right. And again, if you really loved this course, I would appreciate you kind of spreading the word, sharing it with your friends and your family if you think anyone would also benefit from this content. And if you're interested in just learning more about my business and what I do and how I could help you, you can visit my website. It's www.gracefullyholistic.com. Or you can follow me on my social media handles. I'm on Facebook, and then I'm also on the gram at Gracefully Holistic. And hopefully, looking forward to being in touch with you soon. And if you really want or have any specific questions and you want to talk to me right away or schedule a consultation, you can always just shoot me an email. It's gracefullyholistic@gmail.com. All right, hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.